My girlfriend forced me into an open relationship by threatening to break up with me. I begged her not to do this, but in the end I had to give in. When I finally found a partner to sleep with, my girlfriend is accusing me of cheating and destroying our relationship. Now I'm in a healthy relationship with the girl I slept with. AITA? So my girlfriend 24F and I 23M have been going through a very rough time lately, and it all boiled over in the past few days. We have been together for 3 years. Things were going well for the most part. We got along and would rarely fight. Even when we did, we would often both cool down and talk it out not long after. However, about 2 weeks ago, my girlfriend approached me and asked if I wanted to open our relationship. I was immediately shocked, and I almost thought she was joking at first. She said that she really loves me and wants to be with me, but before we get more serious, she wants to get more experience. She was my first everything, and she has been with 2 other guys. I shot down the idea and told her I wasn't comfortable with it. She kept badgering me about it, but eventually relented when she realized I wasn't budging, and that seemed like the end of it. However, a few days later, she came to me again and asked me more aggressively about it, and was insinuating that we might have to take a break if we can't just try opening our relationship for a few months. Considering it was basically we take a break or I just give her this. I relented and said we could open up the relationship. 2 days later, I got home from work and saw she was dressed up, and I asked what for. She said that she was going out to the bar with her friends, and she wouldn't be back until tomorrow. I immediately recognized what this meant and asked if she would rather spend the night in with me, but she said she really wanted to do this. Eventually she left, and I was left sitting alone watching TV getting drunk. I got sad, so I called one of my close friends 23F and was telling her about the situation. After we talked for a while, I asked her if she wanted to come over and drink because I was feeling like shit being alone. After she got there and we hung out for a bit, drinking and discussing the open relationship and how upset I was. My friend suggested that if my girlfriend was essentially cheating on me, I might as well enjoy the perks of an open relationship too. I'm sure you could see what happened there, and I won't get into details, but it made me feel a lot better. Flash forward to the next morning, and I wake up to my girlfriend freaking out asking me what the hell my friend and I were doing in our bed. I told her what happened, and she got mad. She told me that she didn't even do anything last night and ended up crashing at her friend's house. She now wants to close our relationship back off and make me prove my loyalty for cheating on her. We never discussed any rules or anything like that, so I really don't see how I did anything wrong. So am I the asshole for participating in the open relationship that my girlfriend suggested? Update. A ton of people were inquiring about how the whole situation played out and asking me for an update. It's been an incredibly hectic month for me, but things have started to settle down, and I'm ready to update. So for starters, my girlfriend and I ended up officially breaking up a few days after my initial post. It was not a pretty scene. She kept calling me a cheater and telling me what a piece of shit I was for cheating on her. I took this for a few days while I tried to figure out what to do, but eventually I snapped back at her one day. I should have tried to keep my cool, but I told her she is genuinely the stupidest person I've ever met in my life, for thinking an open relationship would work out and it's her fault everything blew up. I told her I played by her rules and it's not my fault I found someone to hook up with faster than she could. She told me she didn't want to cheat on me, she wanted to explore, and I should have understood. We went in circles arguing for a bit, but I eventually told her to get out of my apartment. I pay rent and my name is on the lease, and I had to threaten to call the cops before she realized I was serious. She of course then broke down crying, saying she had nowhere to go and told me she loved me and wanted to make things work. I held firm and told her to leave. After she was out, I immediately felt better, realized that relationship was terrible for me. The next day, I called up my friend, who I slept with in the original post, and asked if she wanted to come over and drink and game. She said yes, and of course, given what happened last time, we ended up hooking up again. My ex ended up coming by the next day to pick up the rest of her stuff, and boy, let me tell you, she was not happy to see my friend. She didn't start anything, but I could tell by the way she was acting, she was seething. My friend and I ended up talking more and more after that until I eventually officially asked her out and she said yes. We have been together for the past month, and to say this is a healthier, better relationship would be an understatement. I have been friends with her for a long time, and I think we've both always sort of had a thing for each other but never really acted on it until we were basically handed that perfect opportunity by my ex. We have a lot more in common, and we are a lot better at communicating with each other, and so far, this whole relationship has been amazing. Thank you all for the advice on the previous post. I really appreciate it. TLDR. Ended up in a significantly healthier relationship after breaking up with my toxic ex. My sister stole my boyfriend and they are getting married. She wants me to be her bridesmaid. When I refused, she is accusing me of ruining her big day. My mom is telling me I'm being petty and breaking the family. Reddit, am I wrong? Hey Reddit. I seriously need some outside perspective because this situation is a mess. So, I'm 24F, and my sister 28F is getting married in 2 weeks. The problem? I don't think I can bring myself to go. And here's why. About a year ago, my ex, let's call him Mark, 26M, dumped me out of the blue after we'd been together for 2 years. I'm talking no warning, no nothing. He hit me with the classic, I need to find myself speech, and poof, he was gone. I was wrecked. I cried, I questioned everything, and yeah, I thought it was all on me. Fast forward a few months and I found out that he wasn't just finding himself, he was finding my sister. Yeah, you read that right. He started dating my freaking sister right after we broke up. And neither of them told me. I had to find out from a mutual friend. Like, are you serious? When I confronted her, she gave me some lame excuse about how it just happened, and she didn't want to hurt me. Girl, what? Here's where it gets worse. They're getting married. Yup, she's walking down the aisle with my ex. And guess what? They've asked me to be a bridesmaid. The thought of standing up there, pretending like everything's chill while they say their vows? Nah, I'm not about that life. Now, my family's acting like I'm the one in the wrong here. My mom even said, well, he wasn't your husband, so it's not like it's a betrayal. What kind of twisted logic is that? My sister's telling me I'm selfish for not wanting to be there on her big day and that I need to get over it for the sake of the family. So I straight up told her I'm not going. I'm sorry, but I can't fake smile through this. Now, they're all guilt-tripping me, saying I'll be the one ruining the family if I don't go. Like, how am I the problem here? AITA for not wanting to go to my sister's wedding because she's marrying my ex? Or am I actually the selfish one? I told my brother that his son of 3 years is an affair child, and his wife is still sleeping with the guy. My SIL straight up denied it, but after the DNA test came negative, my brother divorced her and kicked her out of the house. He is really heartbroken. My family is accusing me of breaking up his marriage. They felt I shouldn't have told him and let him raise another man's child. AITA. I-33F. Never thought I'd be the one to destroy my brother's 35M marriage. But a few weeks ago, I overheard something I wish I hadn't, and now everything's blown up, and I'm not sure if I'm the asshole for what I did. My brother has been married to Anna, 30F, for 5 years, and they have a 3-year-old son, Ben. My brother absolutely adores that kid. He's the type of dad who's always there changing diapers, taking him to the park, all that stuff. But I've always had this weird feeling about Sarah. Like, she was always just a little too distant? I don't know how to explain it, but I always got this vibe from her that something wasn't right. Anyway, about a month ago, I was at their house to drop off some things for Ben. My brother wasn't home, but Anna was there. I was just hanging out in the living room when I overheard Anna on he-phone in the kitchen. At first, I wasn't even really listening until I heard her say, I can't let him find out that Ben isn't his. He'd never forgive me. I literally froze. I thought maybe I heard it wrong at first, but she kept talking, saying something like, I know it's hard, but you knew this would be the risk when we got involved. Turns out, she was talking to a guy from her work, Mark, who she's been sleeping with for like 4 years. And the kicker? Ben isn't even my brother's kid. He's Mark's. I was shaking. I felt sick. I left before she could see I heard anything and drove home in a total panic. I had no idea what to do. I spent days debating whether or not to tell my brother. I mean, how the hell do you tell someone that their kid isn't really theirs? But I also couldn't just sit back and let him live this lie. After a few sleepless nights and talking to some friends, I decided I had to tell him. He deserved to know the truth. So I asked him to meet up for coffee, and I told him everything. He didn't believe me at first, but when I told him exactly what I heard, he went white. He went home and confronted Anna that same night, and it turned into a huge blow-up. Long story short, they're getting a divorce. He's heartbroken, And on top of everything, he did a DNA test, and it confirmed that Ben isn't his. Now his whole world is upside down. He still loves Ben, but everything's different, and I can see the pain every time he looks at him. The thing is, now some of my family's mad at me. They think I should have stayed out of it, that it wasn't my place to get involved, especially with Ben being so young. They say I broke up a family and that my brother would have been better off not knowing. But I just couldn't live with myself letting him raise a child that wasn't his, especially when Anna was keeping it a secret. Now I'm questioning if I did the right thing. My brother's devastated, Ben's life is going to be affected, and my relationship with Anna is obviously ruined. So, AITA for telling my brother the truth and basically blowing up his whole life? Or should I have kept quiet and let things play out on their own? I gave my ungrateful brother a place to live. He tried to snatch my dead daughter's room by redecorating it while I was away. I kicked him out. My parents are on his side and calling me heartless. AITA? So this is still pretty fresh, and I'm absolutely fuming. For context, I, 38F, lost my daughter 2 years ago in a car accident. She was only 14, and ever since that day, I've kept her room exactly as she left it. I don't go in there often, but just knowing that it's there, untouched, brings me comfort. It's like having a piece of her still with me. Her posters, her art supplies, her clothes, all of it is still there. I can't bring myself to change it. Now, fast forward to a few months ago. My brother, 34M, and his new wife, 29F, had some financial issues after blowing a ton of money on a ridiculous, extravagant wedding. They asked if they could stay with me while they saved up for a place. Even though I wasn't thrilled about it, I agreed because, well, family, right? At first, things were fine, until recently. I noticed my sister-in-law making comments about how I shouldn't keep a shrine and how it's time to move on. I ignored her because, frankly, it's none of her damn business how I grieve my child. My brother mostly stayed quiet, but I could tell she was getting into his ear. Anyway, I came home from work last week to a literal nightmare. I walked into my daughter's room, and I kid you not, they had taken down all her posters, boxed up her stuff, and had started repainting the walls a hideous beige. They had moved in a bunch of generic furniture, hung up new curtains, and were apparently turning it into a guest room. I lost it, screaming, crying, the whole thing. I asked them what the hell they were thinking, and their response? My sister-in-law had the nerve to tell me they did it as a favor to help me move on, because it was unhealthy for me to keep the room as it was. I was shaking with rage. I told them to pack their stuff and get the hell out of my house immediately. My brother tried to calm me down, saying they meant well and were only trying to help me let go. He even tried to make me feel guilty by saying they had nowhere else to go right now, as if that would make me suddenly forgive them for destroying the last piece of my daughter I had left. I told them I didn't care and that they had crossed an unforgivable line. Now, my whole family is divided. My parents think I overreacted and say I'm being heartless for kicking them out. They keep saying they were just trying to help, they didn't mean any harm, and that I'm being too harsh because people grieve differently. They're even suggesting I apologize and let them move back in. My brother is still texting me, asking me to reconsider, saying they're in a tough spot, but all I see when I look at him is betrayal. So, AITA for kicking them out and refusing to even consider letting them back in after what they did? My sister wanted me to be her surrogate. I said I was infertile as I wasn't interested. She got divorced because of it. Now that I'm pregnant, she's flipping out. AITA 3 years ago, my sister Anna, she was 29 at the time, now 32, had been struggling with infertility for years. I was 26 then, and married, but my husband and I wanted to wait before having kids so we could focus on our careers and establish ourselves. Anna kept asking me to be her surrogate, and no matter how many times I politely declined, she just wouldn't take no for an answer. I explained that I wasn't ready for children myself, that I wasn't comfortable with being pregnant for someone else, and that I didn't think I could handle the emotional and physical stress that comes with surrogacy. But Anna would always counter my reasons, saying that I was her only hope and would often guilt-trip me about how much she wanted a baby and how great of an aunt I'd be. The pressure got to be too much. During a family gathering, she brought it up again, in front of everyone, which made me feel trapped and humiliated. I was tired of my boundaries being ignored, so I told her, "I can't be your surrogate, Anna, because I'm infertile myself." That wasn't true, as far as I knew. I just wanted her to stop asking. Anna looked shocked and was devastated. After that, she wouldn't talk to me, and eventually, she and her husband got divorced because they couldn't agree on how to move forward with her infertility. Now, 3 years later, I'm 29 and currently pregnant with my first child. When I told Anna about the pregnancy, she completely freaked out. She's been accusing me of betraying her, calling me a liar, and even saying I ruined her marriage. She's been acting irrational and angry towards me ever since, and it's causing a lot of tension within the family. I feel guilty about lying, and I never imagined things would go this far. I only wanted her to respect my boundaries, but now it seems like I may have seriously hurt her life. AITA for telling my sister I was infertile just to get her to stop asking me to be her surrogate. My good-for-nothing husband doesn't help me at chores after I gave birth, so I canceled everything he feels good about and used the money to hire a nanny. AITA. My 28F and my husband, 30M, just welcomed our first baby almost 3 months ago. Understandably, it has been a huge adjustment for both of us. She's still not sleeping through the night and we're both back to work full-time. We have always split the household responsibilities 50-50. We just help where needed, and it's always worked out well. Lately, my husband has been doing the chores terribly, and I've had to come behind him to fix things or clean them again. For example, he cleaned the bottles the other night and they were cleaned so poorly I had to do them again. He dropped pump parts down the disposal and then ran it, ruining them. There have been several clothes that he didn't clean after a blowout that are now ruined. There are many more instances like this. I've confronted him a few times, letting him know we all make mistakes, and I know we're both tired, but it feels like he's not even trying to do things well. He just keeps saying he's so tired, and is having a hard time working and taking care of the house and baby. I do sympathize with this, as I'm also working, pumping, recovering, and taking care of the house and baby. The final straw for me was when he told me to go to sleep and he'd put up the milk I'd just pumped and finish the dishes. I was so grateful until I got up and realized the milk had been sitting on the counter and at this point was no good anymore. He said he was sorry, and he put on a show to relax for a bit before doing the dishes and fell asleep. The next day I decided to cancel all of our streaming services, PlayStation Plus, and our theme park passes in order to hire a housekeeper. I figured if he's too tired to do basic household chores, then a housekeeper is necessary. If he's too tired to put milk up, then he's too tired to play video games or for us to go to a theme park. We still have cable in the PlayStation games and can do other activities outside of the local theme park. He blew up at me and said I had no right doing that and was furious. I thought I was doing us a favor so we can get more sleep and not worry as much about household tasks. So AITAH for hiring a housekeeper without asking. Edit to add, I see a lot of comments about communication. I have been communicating nonstop about my needs and my expectations. I've let a lot of mistakes slide because I know this is hard for both of us. But when it became a daily thing, I let him know if he's unable to do his part, then I need additional help. I mentioned hiring some help, and he laughed and said, "What a ridiculous waste of money." I knew if I asked again, the answer would be no, so I made the decision for both of us. Also, I didn't throw away the TV or PlayStation. I just canceled our subscriptions for them. We were paying around $100 between the two. Our internet includes a handful of cable channels and Peacock, and we have plenty of PlayStation games that we can still play. We both play video games and watch TV. I probably watch more on streaming, so canceling them affects both of us. Housekeeping is $300 a month, and everything I canceled, including Disney passes, is about $230, so it won't be as much of a financial burden. Plus, it will save more money as well, since I won't have to replace destroyed pump parts, clothes, and breast milk. My father gave me $75,000 for wedding ceremony. I'm using it to pay off my debts. My hypocrite mother-in-law wants me to spend the entire money on a lavish wedding. She eloped herself and didn't invite anyone. AITA for refusing and not inviting her to wedding? 29F here. I recently got engaged to my fiancé Ryan, 30 million. He was actually my high school sweetheart, but we broke up during college and have been back together for the past 7 years. Some context is that I am the youngest of 3 girls. My parents are both doctors, and they have done quite well for themselves. I think my future in-laws think they're much wealthier than they actually are. Most of their money has gone into mine and my sister's educations, and so they still have to think about money and how much they're spending. My parents were kind enough to pay for my private college, but I had to cover law school on my own. I still have close to $100,000 to pay off. I make good money now and will be able to pay it off on my own. But also, Ryan and I want to buy a house and have children, and so the debt is stressful. Also, a sizable percent of my salary for the past several years has gone towards paying off my debt. My dad pulled me aside when I got engaged and told me that he set aside $75,000 for each of his daughters for weddings. My oldest sister had a huge, fancy wedding and spent most of the money on a ceremony. My other sister had a modest wedding and put the rest of the money towards a down payment on a house. My dad basically said the money is mine to do what I want with, whether I want to spend it all on a wedding or put all of it towards my student loans or something else. I spoke to Ryan about this and we agreed that I should put all of the money towards my student loans. Neither of us care about having a huge wedding, and we'd much rather get my debt paid off quickly so we could start saving for a house. My parents think this is a smart decision and are happy I'm using the money sensibly. They also know I've never been someone who cared about having a fancy wedding and always thought I'd use the money for something else. When I told Ryan's parents that we're going to do a courthouse wedding, my future mother-in-law Jan was upset. Jan said that my oldest sister had a beautiful wedding and asked why I didn't want the same. I explained the situation to her and that I'd rather put the money my parents set aside towards my loans and have a small celebration with our close family and friends. When I say small, I mean our parents, siblings, 1 or 2 close friends, and that's it. To be honest, if it was up to me, I'd just want it to be me and Ryan, but I think both of our families would be hurt by this, and so I want to include at least parents and siblings. Jan told Ryan and I that we were being selfish, since weddings are about uniting families and celebrating with loved ones, and we're putting our needs before that. She also said that we're both attorneys and aren't exactly struggling to pay the bills. She asked if we'd consider putting half of the money towards a ceremony and half of it towards my loans, and we said no. She then started saying that she had a ton of relatives who wanted to be included in the ceremony and will be disappointed that they don't get to see Ryan get married. Ryan told his mom she was being a hypocrite since she literally eloped and didn't include her family in the ceremony. Jan started crying and saying it was a huge mistake to not have her family there, and she didn't want Ryan to make the same mistake. I stepped in and told Jan that if she wanted to pay for a wedding where all of her relatives would be included, then Ryan and I would be happy to take her up on it, but the money would have to come from her since she's the one who cares about us having a large wedding. This upset Jan, and she told me that the woman's family is supposed to pay for the wedding. She said that it's selfish that 2 doctors wouldn't help with my student loans and also pay for a ceremony. This set me off since my parents have been extremely generous with me, including paying 100% of my undergrad tuition. I told Jan that my parents have worked hard for my sisters and I to have everything we needed growing up and to pay for our educations, and I don't feel right asking them to contribute to a fancy ceremony on top of everything they've already given me. Ryan was furious and told his mom that he doesn't want her at our wedding if she's going to act like this. We ended up leaving, and Ryan hadn't spoken to his mom since. I talked to my oldest sister, and she thinks I'm being selfish too. She says I should put some of the money towards a wedding and some of it towards my loans, so our families could enjoy the special occasion. But I've never wanted a big wedding, and I'm stressed about my loans, and just want them paid off. AITA, I caught my husband calling our autistic son a burden and wanting to give him up for adoption. I cannot believe he said such things behind my back. I don't think I can live with him anymore. AITA for wanting a divorce. Was he correct? I 30F have been married to my husband, 32M, for 5 years. We've had our share of problems like any couple, but this one's really shaken me to my core. We have a son 5M who was diagnosed with autism about 2 years ago. Of course, it hasn't been easy, but I love him with all my heart. He's sweet, and despite the challenges, I could never imagine life without him. Lately my husband has been acting different. He's more distant, like he's checked out emotionally. I chalked it up to stress from work, or maybe just that we're both overwhelmed trying to balance everything. But then I overheard something that I can't unhear. He was talking to a couple of his friends, and they were discussing kids, parenting, etc. One of his friends made some offhand comment about how hard parenting is, and that's when my husband just let loose. He started saying how our son is too much to handle and that he feels like he's a burden. He even mentioned that sometimes he wishes we could give him up for adoption. Like what? I couldn't believe it. At first I thought maybe he was just frustrated and saying things out of anger or stress, but he kept going. He wasn't just venting. He said he missed the freedom we had before becoming parents and that he thinks it would be better for everyone if we weren't stuck with this life. I was absolutely crushed. How could he talk about our son like that? I would never give up on him. Not for anything. He's not a burden. He's a beautiful boy who just needs more understanding and patience. Hearing my husband say those things about him just shattered me inside. When I confronted him, he brushed it off, saying I was overreacting and that he didn't really mean it, that he was just blowing off steam with his friends. But how can I not take that seriously? He's literally talking about abandoning our son. He didn't apologize. He said he's just overwhelmed and feels like our son's autism is taking over our lives and that he doesn't know how much more he can take. But instead of working through it together, he's talking about running away from the problem. Now I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. I feel like I can't stay with someone who sees our child as a burden. But I also feel so torn because we're married, and I thought we'd always have each other's backs, especially when it comes to raising our child. But if he's really feeling like this, how can I trust him to be there for our son and me in the long run? I don't want to break up our family, but I also can't stay with someone who could even think about giving up our child. I love my son more than anything, and I will never allow that. So, AITA for wanting to leave my husband after this? Should I be trying harder to work this out, or is it too far gone? Our prenup ruined our marriage. My fiancé is demanding me to give shares of my company to his daughter. He has nothing to offer for my children. I cannot go through the wedding and canceled our engagement. AITA. IF37 recently got a lump sum for a career project that turned into a whole company. I got into an agreement with a company that has been reselling my services via out-licensing and long-term corporate JVs. When I signed the paperwork, I felt like I had the opportunity to build a financial future, but my relationship wouldn't be affected. This has not been the case, and I'm very put off, to the point of breaking our engagement. We've been together for 4 years. I met him on the last leg of my struggle to get what has become my working life's motivation. This project has been all-consuming, and aside from that, I only had time for my family. I have very good friends, but everyone is busy. I didn't date or go out. When Sean M43 came along, I was swept off my feet because I wasn't expecting to find someone that I liked so much. We shared the same sense of humor, and I became really attracted to him, both emotionally and physically. Sean is divorced. He has average office assistant skills and works for a small government agency. Our salary gap was not a huge deal, as I invested a lot on my project, so whatever money I kept for myself went to my priorities that are non-negotiable. I take care of my family and pay bills. He did have hobbies that he spent time on, but when I met him, he was in between jobs and had to wait 4 months until he became active at his new job, at the agency. We were both thin on money. I was very happy to have a guy who didn't pressure me to wear certain styles. I'm more of a flats and comfy clothes lady. When my ex before him demanded that I look trendy and said things that nullified my self-esteem, I knew he was on food stamps, very briefly, and chalked it up to a bad situation that was temporary. There was huge mutual acceptance. We tried to start a small consulting company, but it didn't work out. I noticed that he wasn't ready to co-manage, and after a long conversation, we mutually decided to call it off. We had been talking about marriage for a while, and when he proposed, the subject of a prenup was no surprise as we had already agreed on having one. Even if I had nothing, I see it as a way to protect ourselves and each other from potential situations. I'm in a niche market that deals with loss prevention, and I've seen people getting into lawsuits. We had drafted a plan but had some tense moments. He closed off at the lawyer's office and created a tense environment during our second meeting. Nothing that we had agreed on was getting followed through, and he kept asking for things and raising the bar. He got his own lawyer, which would have been okay, except that he never told me, and his attorney showed up, and I didn't even know he'd hired one. We had to pause the prenup after he almost bit my head off outside of my lawyer's office when I refused to give his daughter shares of my existing company. That's a no-go for me, and I'd rather stay unmarried. I built that company to leave something to my children. I'm the only parent looking out of them as my ex has been kind of a deadbeat. Sean wasn't even in the picture when I started it. I will not create a trust fund for his child either, like he asked. None of this requests had been previously discussed but came up once his lawyer showed up. I did agree to help her financially, give her an allowance, and help pay for a car. I also agreed to pay full health insurance and contribute to her college housing, plus contribute to her education. She has a successful mom, So my logic is that she already has someone willing to give her a good start in life, since Sean isn't financially able. His daughter is an adult 18F while. My kids are in grade school, and I need to make sure they are taken care of while she's already at an age where she can get a job. I offered to contribute to a fund for her first home, but it seems like nothing I offered was good enough. I love his kid, but I didn't raise her, and she will never see me as her mom, and I respect that. Her mom's family owns a business, and her mom owns her home in a very good area. It's not like she depends on me to have a good life. I wanted it to be fair since her mom, Sean, and I could contribute. So Sean and I had an argument because he sent me a breakdown of how much I'm supposed to make off my business over the next few years. I lost my temper because it felt like a gotcha situation. I confronted him about my own kids and asked what he would contribute to them. He went silent, so I said I wanted their names on the deed to a piece of land that he owns, but hasn't been able to develop because he doesn't have the funds. He was surprised and accused me of trying to dilute his inheritance to his daughter and being generally unfair since she has less than what my kids will end up having. I just wanted him to see my point, but I made things worse. We used to be able to talk outside of the prenup, but now, if I don't get his sarcasm, it's his dry behavior that's driving me crazy. He said he's surprised at my greed and accused me of othering his child. I'm trying to figure out if I came across as a bad stepmother. Also, I'm not ruling out helping all our kids start their own businesses if they want to, but I can't guarantee its success since we are not there yet. Canceling the engagement sounded like the most sensible decision, and I'm astonished this is actually happening. I don't know how to navigate. His last messages have been very hurtful, and he says I'm showing my true colors and told me thank you for my dishonesty about how I truly feel about his daughter. My best friend is pissed and threatens to put him on blast if he keeps this up. I'm confused since I didn't expect our relationship to end like this. AITA, my Muslim classmate, lied to me, Indian, and fed me beef just to mock my religion. I took revenge by feeding her pork. She's flipping out and accusing me of destroying her religion. Revenge is a dish best served cold. AITA, my brother asked me to post this question because he doesn't use Reddit. I, 21M, am an Indian studying in USA right now. I went to a birthday dinner to a friend's house where many of my classmates were present. Some of the food was cooked by my friend's other friend, who is our classmate M. I don't want to call her my friend because of issues. Now M knows I am Indian, and we have a strong culture of not eating beef as we have religious ties to cows, and we treat them as our mother. We have had numerous discussion on this topic in one of our class as we had to dive into other religious cultures for a project. M has strong opinions of Indians calling cow as mother and had ridiculed my opinion in past. Coming to the party, I asked my friend to let me know which dishes had beef so I could avoid it. She told me to ask M told me some stew was vegetarian. I tried it and immediately knew something was wrong. I asked her if she was sure, and she made a surprise face and told me, "Oh no, I think I switched it with beef stew." I was honestly enraged because I am 100% sure she did it on purpose to mess with me. She was giggling on her way out, telling our other friends I am a softie. This is where I may be the asshole. I do cook food for my friend group from time to time as they like the cuisine I prepare. Everything I prepare is always vegetarian, but this time I added pork in a cutlet and passed it to my friend group as something new I tried making. We all were sitting together and sharing meals when M shrieked about the cutlet having pork in it and made a big show of me trying to destroy her religion. She's Muslim. My friend group is divided. Some say I should have mentioned it if I made a non-vegetarian dish, and some say it was M's fault to eat it from my lunchbox without even asking what it was. AITA, because I was being petty and vindictive, but now I feel bad as my religion doesn't teach me this and I never wanted to stoop at M's level. I told my sister's fiancé she was lying about her infertility for 6 years, just before their wedding. He felt betrayed and called off the engagement. Now, my sister and parents are furious and want to cut me off. AITA for revealing the truth? I will try to keep this as simple as possible. My 26M sister, Emma 29F, was very sick in high school. Her choice was either to die young or be able to conceive children. It was a hard decision for her and she doesn't like to talk about it. She has been dating Adam 29M for about 6 years, and he is really nice. The whole family loves him. He proposed to her last year, and they were planning to marry in March next year. But here is the problem. Adam really wants children. He always plays around with our little cousins at family events and talks about what he wants to do and teach his future children. We always thought that they were just going to be adopting, so we never brought it up. But since the engagement, I have noticed that he always talks about them as their children, as in biological. I don't know how to explain it, but it didn't seem like they were going to adopt a child. After thinking about it for a while, I decided to talk with Emma about it. I asked her out and gently brought up the topic. She did seem a bit angry about me mentioning it, but she explained to me that Adam treats adoption the same as giving birth, and that he is happy all the same. It sounded believed, but I know my sister, she was lying. During the entire conversation, she could not look me in the eye. After a month, I finally decided to talk to Adam. This Sunday, we were gathered at my parents' house for dinner, and while everyone was busy and we were alone, I asked Adam how the adoption proceedings were going. Were they going to start now or after they got married? He looked surprised and asked me what I was talking about. I mentioned how he wants many kids, so they should probably be starting with the whole process early. He asked me if Emma wants to adopt a child because they had never talked about it. Since my parents were coming back, I asked him to talk to me later. Around the end of dinner, I asked him for some help with my phone and lead him to the balcony, and I was honest with him. I asked him if he knew that Emma can't have children. At first, he thought I was joking, but when he saw that I was serious, he got this dead look on his face. I told him some of the details and said that it would probably be best if he talked with Emma for the full story. He was quiet for the rest of the evening, when they got how they apparently got in a major fight. I know that he is currently staying with friends and asked for the ring back, but nothing else. Emma hates me, and our parents are mostly on her side and think that I shouldn't have said anything. I thought I was doing the right thing. This is such a huge secret to keep from your future partner. But maybe it really wasn't my place to say anything. My GF went to Europe for work. She cheated on me with her coworker and then ghosted me after a month. Now that I'm in a healthy relationship, she wants me to take her back. She is accusing me of abandoning her and also abusing my girlfriend. AITA, my now ex-girlfriend, and I met and started dating early 2022. I always felt on my guard with her because she was a 10 by 10, and I couldn't figure out why she decided to date me, let alone be in a relationship with me for a year. We went long distance in 2023 because she got a great opportunity to go to Europe for work on a 1-year contract. It was huge money and an opportunity for her to travel, but I couldn't afford to go. We video chatted regularly, talked throughout the day by text, and things seemed manageable a few months in. I started feeling anxious because she mentioned a guy she worked with who always hit on her, but she assured me nothing would happen, and she really missed me. 1 week, she didn't answer and left me on red for 2 weeks. I finally asked if she was okay and if something happened. She finally answered and said that she had made a mistake and didn't know how to tell me. She wound up going out with that coworker and slept with him. She told me the sex was completely shitty and described a few things and how it made it so weird. Things I wish I didn't know. I told her I was really hurt because she promised nothing would happen and we were still in a relationship. She said she understood she hurt me and it was hard for me, but she chose to be honest. She said she needed some space to sort out everything, and it felt like she wanted me to feel bad for her. A month went by. I reached out once and she left me on red. 1 month became 2, then 3. I gave up. I went to therapy after a few weeks because I was so devastated. I had gone to this therapist after I got out of college at 18, so it's been helpful, but I just wrote off the relationship and decided it was time to move on. I felt angry at first, thought about sleeping with one of my coworkers or friends, but I never did. After 4 months, I asked out the girl who had been my stylist for almost a year. She was super sweet and always subtly flirted with me. We went out, and it was just a breath of fresh air. She was very beautiful and kind, and we talked so easily and had a great time with each other. We went on 5 or so dates before we said we were a thing. I told her about what happened with my ex, and I considered it over and in the past. But I had some trust issues, and she understood. Her ex did cheated on her too a few years prior. It's been almost 6 months since my ex cheated on me. My new girlfriend met my parents, and I met her mom. Things have gone very well, and I can't explain everything has been just easy, less anxious, and fun. We had a family party at my parents' place this last weekend. I decided to post some photos to my Instagram of me and her doing some of the games and just a photo of us together. I woke up the next morning to a flood of angry texts from my ex. For abandoning our relationship and not being man enough to tell her it was over and I had moved on. I blocked her number And then she continued on Instagram and even emailed. Finally, I responded saying she didn't deserve to be mad, she cheated and turned her back on everything. She and the relationship was dead to me and she needed to live with what she did. She also messaged my new girlfriend, some nasty things about how she looked, how we were together, and she couldn't replace her. My girlfriend was upset with her but didn't take it to heart. She also blocked my ex and we've just been trying to proceed as normal. But my ex's friends have also messaged me as the bad guy. My Karen sister-in-law tried to steal my baby's name. She thought she was being slick while snooping through my house for the name. Little did she know that I tricked her and gave her a wrong name. The look on face was priceless after she saw my reaction. Now, she is not thrilled about the name and motherhood. Karma works in many ways, so I 33F have been married to my husband Kevin, 35M, for almost 5 years. We have a 3-year-old daughter and I'm currently pregnant with twins, M and F. My brother-in-law Terrence, 38M, has been married to his wife Jess, 39F, for 7 years. Jess and I are total opposites. Jess is an extrovert. She's kind of loud, boisterous, and some would even say abrasive. I'm an introvert. I'm not quiet or shy, but I am reserved. I'm also very observant. The first time I met Jess, I told Kevin that we would be like oil and water. We have never been overtly hostile towards each other, but also have never gone out of our way to bond. Unfortunately, Terrence and Jess had fertility issues for several years before finally having their son a couple weeks ago. Prior to this, Jess was very odd towards us when I was pregnant with our daughter. The best way to describe it is hot and cold. One minute she pretended like she didn't care while we were talking about it at family gatherings. The next she was volunteering to throw the baby shower. I gave a firm no to that. We both assumed the behavior was because of their fertility issues and didn't think too much of it. But the strangest thing she did was almost demand to know what we were naming our daughter before we announced it. She asked us constantly after our gender reveal and got visibly annoyed when we just laughed her off and said it was a secret. We couldn't understand why the hell she cared so much as she was not expecting at this time. Regardless, we didn't share the name with anyone. When our daughter was born and her name was finally announced, Jess was kind of obsessed with it. IDK, how to explain it. She just kept going on and on about how beautiful and unique it was. To this day, she comments about how different it is. The name we chose is a common Welsh name which wouldn't be all that different except for the fact that we are African American LOL. I've always gravitated towards names from different regions and found and fell in love with the name years ago and never shared it with anyone prior to Kevin. Fast forward to both of us being pregnant at the same time. Jess's odd behavior continued towards me, but this time it was more blatant. Snarky comments under the guise of jokes about how big I was going to get with 2 babies and that my body would never snap back like it did after our daughter. She even accused us of getting pregnant on purpose after she announced her own pregnancy, even though the whole family knew we were actively trying. And at the time of her announcement, I was already a few weeks along and didn't know. One thing about me, introvert or not, I'm no pushover and will stand up for myself. But I chose to ignore Jess because I knew that would get to her more than confronting her would, since she seems to thrive off drama. Jess was obviously much further along than we are, however, we did have our gender reveal prior to Jess giving birth. And right on cue, the baby name interrogation started again. Because they decided not to find out the gender of their baby in advance, Jess kept hounding us for both of the names we had already picked out. But again, we declined to answer. After days of this, I got annoyed and asked Kevin if he thought the reason for her insistence was so she could use the name first, since she was due first. He kinda chuckled until he realized I was serious and said he didn't think so, but that anything was possible. So I said, let's test it. We were due to host my father-in-law's birthday at our house a couple weeks later, and I decided to leave something in the unfinished nursery with a girl and boy name on it and see if Jess went snooping. Because Kevin thought it was silly, he said he would give me $20 if she did it. So I went onto some site where you can order custom name wall decals and put in the names Aria Rose and Sebastian Ali. These are names that we like, but aren't remotely close to what we chose. This will also be our last pregnancy, so even if Jess did use them, we wouldn't care. I didn't complete the order. I got to the final page and then printed it out and hid it in a dresser drawer in the nursery. The party goes off, but because we were busy hosting, we never noticed if Jess disappeared for any extended period of time. When I went into the nursery the next morning, nothing was out of place, and the order sheet was still in the exact location. So we both just went whelp and forgot about it. I did, however, notice that Jess never asked us about the names again. Then Jess gives birth. We went to the hospital to give our congrats. When we go in and see the baby, I asked what his name was, and man, I cannot properly explain the shit-eating grin that came over Jess's face as she says Sebastian Ali. I mean, she was really proud of herself, and honestly, it's the most vindictive I have ever seen her look in the years I've known her. But instead of reacting how she was expecting, I put on a performance like I had graduated from Juilliard. OMG, that's such a great name. He's so cute. Look at his little face. Oh, I just love him so much. Welcome to the world, Sebastian. Auntie is gonna spoil you rotten. I mean, I am laying it on thick without an ounce of bother. The range of emotions on Jess's face went from shock to confusion to rage in a span of maybe 17 seconds. Meanwhile, my husband is holding in the laugh of the century. We later say our goodbyes, and he gives me a 20 in the elevator while almost crying, laughing. All I could say was, like I thought. This was 2 weeks ago, and we haven't seen them since because we wanted to give them time to settle in with the new baby. I have heard from my mother-in-law that Jess doesn't seem as thrilled about motherhood as she thought she would be considering how long it took them to conceive, but said it might just be baby blues. Obviously, I think she's just disappointed that her petty move didn't have the desired effect on us. I did share this with my sister, and while she laughed initially, she did say it was kind of an move. So, AITA? My sister-in-law started hitting me while my husband watched and did nothing. His entire family is taking her side. I escaped there when they were sleeping. I'm going to end things with my husband for not standing up for me. AITA. IF27 have been living with my partner, Finn M35, since last summer when my lease ended. He has been very supportive throughout challenges in my career, and moving with him helped me save money on a new lease. I just finished my PhD in science and had to stay an additional semester as I'm collaborating for a project. When Finn's lease ended, we decided to settle in the city where my collaboration project will be launched. He asked his family, and they agreed to let us stay for 2 months until we left. Neither of us own furniture or anything since we sold that off. I paid them rent, and so did he. My situation with his family turned bitter pretty fast. I noticed deodorant skid marks on a shirt of mine and also a scent, not sweat, just perfume, that doesn't belong to me on a lace blouse. So somebody had been wearing my clothes. I went to him, and he dismissed it as me exaggerating. Maybe I was wrong, but I said he was enabling his family, and he got very offended. I resorted to putting all my belongings back inside my luggage and locking it, and it never happened again. His sister definitely caused trouble between us. She told him that I looked at her like she was less, and he came to me with that. I find her scary, and I'm non-confrontational, but I can fight back if I have to. After that, I got snide remarks and indirect aggression from mother-in-law and sister-in-law F44. Sister-in-law prides herself on having hit her exes, how she beat her brothers up, how she dragged one woman by the hair back in her 20s. The family acts like she's quite a strong woman, and they treat her like she's all that. What happened last week was horrible, and I ended up crying. So sister-in-law walked into the living room with a very pretty blouse, very similar to one that I own. It wasn't mine. I might have shown a bad facial expression because she confronted me immediately. We had never had a direct confrontation before. She came at me and said I was accusing her of stealing. I was sitting down, and she got into my face and pressed her knees against my legs, and I couldn't move properly. Finn told her to stop but took no real action. So she leaned over, and I pushed her by the chest to keep her away, and she started screaming at me and squaring off. She poked me with her finger, and I freaked out and swung at her and slapped her because she did walk towards me when I got up. I managed to get out of the living room and locked myself in our room. Finn never came to check on me. When I came out hours later, sister-in-law looked like she had been crying. After that, no one has ever said a word to me. Not to scold me and not to comfort me. Finn has not spoken a word, not even when we were alone. He won't answer when I talk to him, and it hurts a lot. I moved with him because I'm broke, and he did me a huge favor. I'm getting my first payment from the research project this week, and that reimburses my own expenses and the money that I put into the project. I do have funds in the bank from my part-time job that I kept until September. I don't feel great about this, but I left while everyone was sleeping. I had promised Finn that I would help him start a business once I started getting my checks. I had confirmation of payment 2 weeks ago, and a new contract cleared. I thought we would enjoy this as a couple, but I think it's a lot to reconsider. I'm very grateful for everything that he's done, but at the same time, he didn't have my back. I don't have a strong frame and his sister is taller than me. I think I lucked out getting out of that situation, but she could have gone crazy and messed me up. He never got up and Neil said nothing. I feel lonely and have been crying, and the reason I left is that I don't want to cry in front of them. I know it's petty, but I also don't want to help him because I know he wanted to help his family, and after what happened, I don't want them to benefit from me, even indirectly. I'm staying at a motel. I have enough funds, but Finn doesn't have a job, and I'm literally lurching him. I love him, but I don't want to get into a family like his. On the one hand, I earned this money with my efforts. He was morally supportive, but I paid for my own education. On the other hand, we made plans based on following my career, and I'm making the decision to end things. We never had fights, but he did change sometimes when near his family. I know his sister's actions are her own. Maybe he was in shock. Any advice is helpful. AITA, my girlfriend gets cranky and abuses me every time I wake her up in the morning. I finally had enough and told her I'll not do it anymore. Guess what? She overslept the very next day and got fired. Now she's blaming me and demanding half of my salary. AITA. I, 26M, have been in a relationship with my girlfriend, Jess, 28F, for 3 years. Jess and I live together. Jess is not a morning person. This is primarily due to the fact that she's up until 2 or 3 a.m. every day on her phone despite having to wake up at 8 a.m. I've tried to get her to start going to bed earlier so she could wake up on time, but she says that would leave her no time to do her own things, seeing as she only works until 4 p.m. This is patently false, but I decided not to press the issue. Generally, I have to wake Jess up. I wake up at 5 o'clock, run for an hour, get home at 6 o'clock, shower, eat breakfast, and use my computer a bit. I'll start waking Jess up at around 7:30. I fully understand it's ridiculous to have to wake a 28-year-old woman up, but I honestly don't mind, or at least I wouldn't mind if it weren't for the fact that waking Jess up is a nightmare. I start by gradually turning on the lights at around 7:30, starting with the bedside lamp. Then I begin gently trying to wake her up. If she gets up around this time, she'll go to the bathroom, and then I'll go back to the room to find her asleep again. The worst part about waking her up is she's so ornery in the morning. She'll use expletives directed at me, insult me, and then later when I bring up her words, she'll just say, "I was sleepy and out of it. What do you want me to do?" Well, last Friday she pushed things a bit too far. I was waking Jess up as usual, and when she walked past me to go to the bathroom, she made this exaggerated dry heaving sound at me. Then she said, "You fucking smell. Take a shower." I had already taken a shower and always keep good hygiene. That evening, I told her that our deal with me waking her up every day was done. I was done with her tantrums, done with her insults, and done with her frankly stupid facial expressions with how out of it she was. I told her that I'm not moving a finger to make sure she gets up for work on time. She was naturally upset about this, but I said she could wake herself up. Today was Monday, and lo and behold, she overslept and was over an hour late. Since she had already been written up twice during her probationary period for her job, this was an automatic firing. Around noon, she called me incoherently yelling about how I got her fired. I had to hang up on her to get back to work. When I got home, she immediately started shrieking at me more, and then demanded half my salary until she found a better job. I feel like making her go cold turkey on waking up might have been too sudden, and apparently she really liked the job she had. Should I have at least tried to wake her up? My mom wore a white dress at my baby's funeral after I specifically told her not to. My sister is posting my dead baby's photo all over the internet when I told her not to. I don't want to deal with them anymore and cut them off permanently. AITA. I, 24F, recently had baby that passed a few months ago. We just had the funeral the other day. I specifically told my mom I wanted my partner and I to be the only ones wearing white and for everyone else to wear the color blue or black. While on a call with my aunt, it slipped out that my mom would be wearing white. I was highly upset because my mom always does stuff like this and likes to be in control, and I'm a very non-confrontational person on a whole, but also because how she acts when I do address her. She also did not come to my gender reveal because she was mad at me and she was the keeper of the gender, and said she would not come unless I apologized to her. The day of the funeral, I sent a reminder to everyone if they didn't have the color blue, please just wear black. My mom responded and said, okay. She still showed up in white despite my wishes. Later on in the day after the funeral, I went to eat with mutual friends and my partner. I went on Snapchat and saw that my sister 18F had posted my son's face. I have no proper pictures of him when he was alive, so I had a photographer come and take photos of him the day before the funeral so that we could have something to place on the funeral monitor and on an easel. My partner and I agreed that we would never post a picture of our baby's face out of respect. When I saw that my sister posted this picture, it had already been up for an hour at this time. I immediately called her and told her to please take down the post. She said she was not home and she was out eating at a restaurant. I checked her location. She was home, so she lied. I called her again and she ignored my call but messaged me to show me that she had taken it down off Snapchat. I lost my composure and I snapped. I said to her, how dare she post my child without my permission? Even I have never posted my child's face out of respect and because I didn't want people to have access to seeing him like that. Between you and Mom, I don't know what is wrong with you guys. She did not respond. I was speaking to one of my friends about the situation, and she told me my sister posted it on her Instagram story too. I went to look at her Instagram story but could not find her page. I asked my friend to please send me the screenshot. My sister had blocked me entirely from her Instagram, and she had that post up for longer than the Snapchat one. She had it up for 3 hours. After this, I blocked her. And I called her boyfriend to tell her to please take it down and to never post anything like this again. Please be kind. I cannot handle any rude comments at this time. Would I be wrong to go no contact? Edit 1. Thank you everyone for commenting. I will be trying to answer as much comments as possible, but thank you so much for the comments. I struggle with being confrontational and addressing issues with my family because the way I've been treated over the years. I just wanted my wishes to be respected. Yes, this might be their grandchild, nephew, and etc., but he is my child first. If I personally haven't posted my son's face on social media, why should anyone else? I respect my son enough not to post his dead body on social media for people to send around, as I am from a small Caribbean country where people love to gossip and send stuff around. Also, for those that think this is fake, I wish it was fake, but this is truly my life. Additionally, the family or the parents of the deceased wearing a different color from the funeral goers is the norm in my small Caribbean country, and probably other Caribbean countries as well. My husband cheated on me with his coworker while I was saving for IVF. He spent our savings on gifts for her. I exposed him at a company event, humiliating him in front of everyone. After the divorce, I got the house and a large chunk of his money. His girlfriend dumped him because he was broke, and now he's begging to come back. So, this all happened about 6 months ago, and honestly, I still can't believe it's real. My 32F, now ex-husband, 35M, and I were married for 7 years. From the outside, we had the perfect life, nice house, great jobs, a group of supportive friends. But, as you probably guessed, things weren't as perfect as they seemed. For years, I thought we were happy. We'd been through a lot together, job changes, moving across the country, even dealing with infertility. I thought our bond was strong. He always came off as supportive, loving, and reliable. But looking back, there were subtle signs that something was off. Things really started to change about a year ago. He became distant, always on his phone, working late more often, and was generally less attentive. I chalked it up to stress. After all, he had just gotten promoted, and I figured that meant more responsibilities. When I asked him about it, he said the usual things like, "It's just work," or "I'm tired." I believed him. I didn't want to be that suspicious wife who jumped to conclusions. But then the small things started piling up. One time I found lipstick on the collar of one of his shirts. He said it was from a coworker who hugged him goodbye after a late meeting. He even laughed it off, saying, "What, you think I'm cheating or something?" With that innocent smile I used to love. I laughed too, thinking I was being paranoid. Fast forward to a few months ago. My best friend Anna came to me one evening. She looked more serious than I'd ever seen her. I knew something was up, and my heart sank before she even opened her mouth. "Please don't freak out, but I need to show you something," she said, pulling out her phone. There, right in front of me, was a picture of my husband with another woman. They were at a fancy restaurant, holding hands, and it wasn't just any random picture. This was from his Instagram story. He had blocked me from seeing it, but my best friend? He hadn't been careful enough. My blood ran cold. I felt like my heart was being ripped out of my chest. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The worst part was I recognized the woman, Jessica, one of his coworkers. He'd mentioned her in passing, saying they had to collaborate on some projects. I thought nothing of it at the time. But now, it all made sense. The late nights, the work trips, the distant behavior. I was furious. But more than that, I was hurt. 7 years? And this was how he repaid me? Anna begged me not to act rashly, but honestly, I was seeing red. I needed a plan, but I also wanted him to feel the betrayal and hurt he had caused me. So I decided to wait and gather more evidence. Over the next few weeks, I discreetly went through his phone, his emails, even the phone bills. And boy, did I find more than I bargained for. He had been cheating with Jessica for over a year. Not only that, but I found out he had also been spending our joint money on gifts and trips for her. All this time, while I was scraping together savings for IVF treatments, he was whining and dining another woman on my dime. I was livid, but I stayed quiet. I needed to make sure everything was lined up perfectly before I made my move. After consulting with a lawyer, I started working on my plan. I was going to make sure this was public and that he would never forget it. His company was hosting a huge event in the coming weeks, and Jessica would be there. I decided that was the moment. I showed up, dressed to the nines, and acted like everything was fine. Halfway through the night, I got on stage, tapped the mic, and calmly said, "I just want to congratulate my husband on his year-long affair with his coworker. I hope you both enjoy the lavish trips you took with our money while I was planning our future." The room went silent, and all eyes were on him. He went pale, and Jessica was absolutely mortified. They both tried to stammer excuses, but it was too late. I walked out, head held high, and immediately filed for divorce the next morning. Now here's where it gets even better. The lawyer I had consulted with helped me get the upper hand. Since we had no prenup, I was entitled to half of everything. And since his affair and misusing of funds could be considered marital misconduct, I ended up getting even more. I took the house, a significant chunk of his retirement savings, and even some of his investments. He fought tooth and nail, but the evidence I had was irrefutable. In the end, he lost everything. He tried to reach out, begging for forgiveness, saying he made a mistake and wanted me back. But by then, I was done. I had been humiliated, betrayed, and manipulated. There was no coming back from that. Now, he's living in a small, run-down apartment, while I'm comfortably settled in our house. And as for Jessica, they didn't even last. Turns out, she was only in it for the money, and once that was gone, so was she. As for me, I'm finally free. I've taken time to heal, and I'm focusing on myself for the first time in years. It wasn't easy, but I'm glad I made the choices I did. Looking back, I don't regret a single thing. So, Reddit AITA for publicly exposing my cheating husband and taking everything he had. I work at a restaurant where a church group comes every day. I found that they had been praying for me to break up so that one of the members' son can propose me. I kicked them out of the restaurant. AITA. So I, 21F, work at a small restaurant filled with locals and church groups who frequent the restaurant quite often. For context, I'm in a relationship with someone I met at the restaurant, and most of the people here know that. On to the story. This afternoon, I had a church group of 8 come in. I know them all by name. 2 in particular are Josh and his son Adam, who wasn't in attendance today. Everything is going fine, normal conversation is flowing, and at the end they ask me to join hands with them in prayer. I don't practice any religion, but for my customers, I bow my head in respect, let them say their prayer, and finish off with an amen. That didn't happen today. Josh started the prayer, and as we near the end, I feel him squeeze my hand a little and say, "And Jesus, we ask you to free this beautiful young lady from her ties to another man for my boy Adam. I know in my heart and with you that they are meant to be together but don't want it to happen in sin. Again, I ask you to please free this woman from her." I stopped listening at this point, pulled my hand away, and left the table. I got Adam's number from a mutual friend of ours and called him to ask WTF his group was on about. He was very apologetic and told me that he had a crush on me way back when I first started to work at the restaurant, almost 2 years ago at this point. That is long gone, as he knew we had different beliefs, along with wanting to still come to the restaurant without any awkward tension. Apparently, his dad took this little crush and effing ran with it. He told me at church that his group prays about this all the time, and that he doesn't attend as much because of it, along with the fact that their preacher even mentioned it a couple times during group prayer. I guess he called his dad because he came up to me and berated me for interrupting his prayer and for calling Adam to tell on him. I told him his prayer made me very uncomfortable, as I'm secure in my relationship and will never step out in favor of Adam. I said, I don't know what you think praying about it will do, but no form of any God would ask me to leave my partner in your favor to make you, and only you, happy. You and anyone else actively participating in your fucked up fantasy can leave. So they did. Our owner knows these people well and also attends the same church, so obviously she heard about it. She told me that she knows I have different beliefs but not to talk to people that way in the restaurant, as it's a bad look on her as well. I apologized for the hurtful words I used, but I will not let anyone think that praying for me to leave my partner will work, nor will I stand being directly disrespected in a group of people like that. AITA